The unexpected prize. The air inside the auction hall buzzed with energy. Traders, smugglers, and collectors from across the galaxy had gathered for what was whispered to be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Among them was Alex Carter, a scrappy human trader with a knack for spotting rare opportunities. He adjusted his worn leather jacket and leaned against the railing of his booth, his eyes locked on the stage below. This wasn't just another auction. The prize up for grabs was said to be a relic from the lost Zenith Empire, an ancient civilization shrouded in mystery. Legends claimed the relic held knowledge that could turn a pauper into a king or a planet into dust. Alex didn't believe all the myths, but if there was even a fraction of truth to them, this artifact could change his life. Lot 347. The auctioneer called out, his voice echoing through the massive hall. A large crate, secured with glowing containment fields, was wheeled onto the stage. It was sleek, metallic, and unmarked, giving no hint of its contents. The item within has been authenticated as originating from Zenithian space, the auctioneer continued. The bidding starts at 10,000 credits. Alex's heart raced. He didn't have much, barely enough to keep his ship running, but he'd scraped together every credit he could for this moment. He wasn't leaving empty-handed. 10,000. Someone shouted. 15,000. Barked another voice, this one gruff and mechanical, belonging to a hulking cyborg in the front row. Alex hesitated. That was nearly all he had. But then he noticed a figure across the room, seated in the shadows. The man was dressed in an elaborate crimson robe, his face hidden beneath a hood. Every so often, the man's gloved hand tapped the armrest of his chair, as though waiting for the right moment to strike. 20,000, the hooded man said calmly. The room fell silent. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Whoever this man was, he meant business. Alex clenched his fists. He had to act now. 25,000. He shouted, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. The cyborg snarled, but didn't counter. All eyes turned to the hooded man, who tilted his head slightly, as if considering his options. 30,000. The man said finally, his voice cold and deliberate. Alex's heart sank. That was way beyond his limit. He glanced at the crate again. Whatever was inside, it had to be worth it. He took a deep breath, wiped the sweat from his brow, and made his move. 35,000. Alex yelled. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some laughed, others shook their heads. A lone human going against someone so obviously powerful. It was madness. The hooded man leaned forward, his face still obscured. For a moment, Alex thought he might bid again. But instead, the man reclined, waving dismissively. He was done. Sold, the auctioneer declared, slamming his gavel. Lot 347 goes to the gentleman in booth 7. Relief washed over Alex, followed quickly by a wave of anxiety. He had just spent everything he owned. This relic had better be worth it. An hour later, back at the loading bay, Alex paced nervously as workers delivered the crate to his ship. His freighter, the Silver Dawn, wasn't much to look at, but it was reliable enough to get him across the galaxy. The crate was larger than he expected, nearly 8 feet tall. Its surface was cool and smooth, with faint lines of light running along its edges. There was no label, no indication of what lay inside. Authenticate delivery, one of the workers said, holding out a datapad. Alex scanned his thumbprint and nodded. Thanks. The workers left without a word, and Alex was alone with his prize. He took a deep breath and ran his hand along the edge of the crate. Something about it felt strange, almost alive. All right, let's see what you are, he muttered, activating the release mechanism. With a hiss of pressurized air, the crate's front panel slid open. Alex squinted, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Inside was not an artifact, not a weapon, not a treasure. It was a stasis pod, and inside the pod was a girl. She wasn't human. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, shimmering faintly under the light. Her hair flowed like silver silk, and intricate patterns glowed on her arms and neck, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. She looked delicate, almost fragile, but there was an undeniable strength in her presence. Alex stepped back, his mind racing. This couldn't be right. He hadn't bid on a person. Why was she in the crate? Who was she? Before he could process it, the girl's eyes fluttered open. They were the brightest violet he had ever seen. She stared at him, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "Help me," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. Then her eyes closed again, and the pod's lights dimmed. Alex's pulse thundered in his ears. This was no relic. This was trouble. And trouble, he realized, was now his responsibility. The alien's identity. The hum of the Silver Dawn's engines filled the quiet cargo bay as Alex stared at the stasis pod. The girl inside hadn't moved since whispering those two haunting words. "Help me." Alex paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair. "This isn't what I paid for," he muttered to himself. Not a relic, not treasure, but her. He stopped pacing and glared at the pod. "Who are you?" The onboard AI chirped to life. "Incoming transmission detected, Captain." Alex stiffened. He hadn't told anyone about his purchase yet. Source: unknown. Signal is encrypted. Block it. The AI hesitated, unable to comply. Signal penetration is too advanced. Before Alex could respond, a shadowy hologram materialized in the middle of the cargo bay. The figure was tall and cloaked, with a voice like gravel scraping metal. "You've made a grave mistake, human." Alex's heart sank. It was the hooded man from the auction. He crossed his arms, trying to appear unfazed. "I won the auction fair and square. Whatever this is, it's mine." "She is not a prize," the man growled. "You have no idea what you've stolen." "I didn't steal anything," Alex shot back, "and I don't take kindly to threats." "Return her to me," the man demanded, his voice cold and sharp, "or you will die screaming." The transmission cut off as abruptly as it had begun. The air seemed heavier, and Alex felt the weight of the threat sink in. Whoever the girl was, she was important, dangerously important. He turned back to the stasis pod, his fingers hovering over the control panel. "I need answers, and you're the only one who can give them to me." With a hiss, the pod unlocked, and the glass cover slid away. For a moment, the girl didn't move. Then, with a soft gasp, her eyes fluttered open again. Alex crouched beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her violet eyes focused on him, wide with confusion. She tried to sit up but winced, clutching her side. "Easy," Alex said, holding out a hand to steady her. "You're safe, for now." She stared at him, her lips parting as if to speak, but instead of words, a strange melodic hum filled the air. It wasn't a sound. At least not one Alex could hear normally. It resonated in his mind, a series of images and emotions flooding his thoughts. A burning city, soldiers in dark armor, a shining crystal, shattered, and then her face, filled with fear. Alex stumbled back, clutching his head. What was that?" The girl's voice finally came, soft but urgent. "You must run. They're coming." "What are you talking about?" Alex asked, still reeling from the strange connection. "Who are you?" She hesitated, her gaze shifting to the open crate behind her. "My name is Zafira," she said at last. "I was not meant to survive." Her words chilled Alex. "Survive what?" Zafira closed her eyes, as if the memories were too painful to recall. "My people were destroyed. I am the last." She looked at him, her expression a mix of gratitude and fear. "You saved me." "Saved you?" Alex shook his head. "I didn't know what I was bidding on. I thought." He stopped, realizing the absurdity of his situation. "It doesn't matter. Whoever those people are, they're not happy you're here." "Why?" Saphira's voice grew quieter. Because of what I carry. She placed a hand on her chest, and the glowing patterns on her skin pulsed brighter. Inside me is knowledge. A weapon. The kind of power that can end empires. Alex's stomach dropped. You're kidding. I wish I were, she said, her tone heavy with sorrow. They killed my family, my people, just to get to me. If they find me, they will finish what they started. Alex rubbed his temples, trying to process everything. Okay, so you're saying I bought the galaxy's most wanted fugitive. Great. Saphira tilted her head, confused. Fugitive. It means trouble, Alex said. And you've brought a lot of it. Before she could respond, the AI interrupted again. Captain, multiple ships inbound. Scans indicate high-energy weapons. Alex cursed under his breath. They found us already. Saphira stood, unsteady but determined. If you leave me, they may let you live. Not a chance. Alex snapped. He grabbed her arm and led her toward the cockpit. You think I'm going to hand you over to those psychos? If they're willing to chase you this hard, there's no way they're letting me walk away. She looked at him, her violet eyes softening. You risk much for someone you don't know. Yeah, well, I've always had bad instincts, Alex said, strapping into the pilot's seat. Hold on. This is gonna get rough. As the Silver Dawn roared to life, the first wave of enemy ships appeared on the radar. Alex gripped the controls, adrenaline surging through him. Aye, plot a course for the nearest nebula, he barked. Course plotted. Hostiles in pursuit. Saphira braced herself as the ship launched into hyperspeed. The stars blurred into streaks of light, and Alex couldn't help but glance at her. You better be worth all this, he muttered. Saphira met his gaze, her expression unreadable. I hope I am. The chase had begun, and Alex knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same again. On the run. The Silver Dawn trembled as explosions erupted around it. Alex gripped the controls, sweat beading on his forehead. The enemy ships were relentless, their bright plasma bolts lighting up the darkness of space like fireworks of doom. I thought hyperspeed would get us out of here, Alex shouted. It would, the ship's air responded calmly, if they weren't using phase-tracking technology. Alex groaned. Perfect. They'd got better tech, more firepower, and probably a whole army waiting for us. This day just keeps getting better. Behind him, Saphira sat strapped into a seat, her glowing patterns dimming as exhaustion overtook her. Her voice was soft but steady. You should leave me. If they catch me, they might spare you. Alex barked a laugh. Spare me? They just tried to vaporize my ship. I think we're past that point. Saphira's violet eyes fixed on him. You don't understand what they're capable of. They've destroyed entire civilizations for less. Then it sounds like you're not the only one who owes me a thank you. Alex quipped, jerking the ship to the left to avoid another volley of plasma fire. Now hold on. I've got an idea. He steered the Silver Dawn toward a nearby asteroid field. The jagged rocks tumbled in chaotic patterns, glowing faintly from the radiation of a nearby dying star. It was a death trap for most pilots, but Alex had spent years navigating dangerous routes to avoid customs officials and bounty hunters. This wasn't his first chase. The enemy ships hesitated at the edge of the field, their pilots clearly weighing the risk. Alex smirked. Cowards. Do you really think this will stop them? Saphira asked. No, Alex admitted, flipping a series of switches on the dashboard. But it'll slow them down. The ship weaved through the asteroids, narrowly avoiding collisions. The hull groaned under the stress, and Alex silently prayed it would hold together. Behind them, the enemy ships began to follow, their sleek designs allowing them to maneuver more easily. Saphira watched the pursuing ships, her face tense. They won't stop. Alex glanced at her. Then it's time to get creative. He pressed a button, and the Silver Dawn released a cloud of metallic debris. The shards reflected the light of the dying star, creating a blinding spectacle. The enemy ships veered wildly, their sensors overwhelmed. "Not bad, right?" Alex said, grinning. Sapphira didn't answer. Her focus was on something far more alarming. "There's another ship." Alex's smile vanished. "What?" She pointed to the radar. A massive cruiser loomed in the distance, blocking their escape route. Its dark, menacing shape dwarfed the asteroids around it, and its weapon systems were already powering up. That's new," Alex stammered. Sapphira's voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge to it. "That's their flagship. And you're just telling me this now? I didn't think they'd bring it so soon." The flagship's weapons fired, sending shockwaves through the asteroid field. Alex's ship lurched violently, alarms blaring. "This is bad," Alex muttered. "This is really, really bad." Sapphira unstrapped herself, her movements deliberate despite her obvious fatigue. She placed a hand on Alex's shoulder, her touch surprisingly firm. "Trust me." Alex blinked. "Trust you? What are you?" Before he could finish, Sapphira stepped toward the center of the cockpit. The glowing patterns on her skin flared to life, brighter than he'd ever seen. Her voice took on a melodic quality, resonating in the air like a song. "What are you doing?" Alex asked, shielding his eyes from the light. "I'm giving us a chance," she said, her voice layered with an otherworldly tone. The light around her pulsed, expanding outward in waves. The ship seemed to respond, the engines roaring to life with renewed vigor. The asteroids around them began to shift, as if drawn by an invisible force. Alex watched in awe as the asteroids moved to form a barrier between them and the flagship. The enemy cruiser's weapons fired, but the blasts were absorbed by the massive rocks now shielding the Silver Dawn. That's incredible," Alex whispered. Sapphira staggered, her glow dimming. Alex caught her before she fell. "Hey, stay with me. What did you just do?" "Manipulated gravitational fields," she said weakly. "It's temporary." Alex glanced at the radar. "The barrier wouldn't hold for long. Then we'd better make it count." He guided the Silver Dawn through a narrow opening in the asteroid field, pushing the engines to their limit. Behind them, the flagship struggled to navigate the shifting debris. As they cleared the field, the enemy ships fell out of range. The radar was blissfully empty. Alex let out a shaky breath and leaned back in his seat. "Well," he said, "that was a close one." Sapphira managed a faint smile. "You're welcome." Alex chuckled, shaking his head. "You're full of surprises, you know that." She didn't answer, her eyelids fluttering shut as exhaustion claimed her. Alex watched her for a moment, his mind racing with questions. Who was she, really? And what had he gotten himself into? For now, those questions would have to wait. They were alive, and that was enough. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Secrets revealed. The Silver Dawn floated in the shadow of a desolate planet, its engines silent, blending into the void. Alex sat at the control panel, eyes fixed on the readings. The ship had taken a beating, and the repairs would take hours. But for now, they were safe, or as safe as a wanted fugitive and her reluctant rescuer could be. Sapphira sat across from him in the dimly lit cockpit, her once bright glow reduced to faint flickers. She looked fragile, but Alex had seen enough to know she was far from helpless. Her violet eyes followed his every movement, calm but probing. "All right," Alex said, breaking the silence. "I think it's time you tell me the truth. All of it." Sapphira tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "The truth?" "Yeah," Alex said, leaning back in his chair. "Why those guys want you so bad? What's so important about that glow of yours, and why my life just got 100 times more complicated because of you?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and tinged with sadness. "You've heard of the Zenith Empire." Alex raised an eyebrow. Everyone's heard of them. Ancient civilization. Super advanced. Wiped out ages ago. What does that have to do with you? I'm their last survivor, Zafira said simply. Alex blinked, the weight of her words hitting him like a punch to the gut. You're kidding. Zafira shook her head. My people weren't destroyed by war or natural disaster, as the stories say. We were betrayed from within. Betrayed? Alex asked, leaning forward. She nodded, her glowing patterns pulsing faintly as she spoke. Our greatest scientists developed something called the catalyst. It wasn't a weapon, not at first. It was meant to create balance, a way to stabilize dying planets, restore resources, bring peace, but in the wrong hands. Her voice faltered. It became a weapon. Alex finished. Zafira's eyes met his. The catalyst could manipulate energy on a scale no one had ever imagined. Stars, planets, even living beings. It could alter them, destroy them. When our leaders realized the danger, they'd ordered it dismantled. But a faction within our government saw its potential for conquest. Alex let out a low whistle. Let me guess. They used it on your people. Zafira nodded, her expression grim. The catalyst was activated during what was supposed to be a peace summit. Entire cities were vaporized in an instant. My family, my friends, all gone. Alex felt a pang of guilt for pressing her, but he needed to know. And you? How did you survive? My parents were scientists who worked on the catalyst, she said. They knew it was dangerous, so they encoded its final blueprint, its full power, inside me. A living safeguard. They thought it would protect the knowledge until it could be destroyed. Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what he was hearing. So let me get this straight. You're walking around with the key to the galaxy's most dangerous weapon, and now everyone wants a piece of you. Yes, Zafira said. And if they capture me, they'll have the power to destroy entire star systems. Alex let out a bitter laugh. Fantastic. Just what I needed. A galactic doomsday machine as my co-pilot. Zafira's gaze softened. I didn't choose this. Alex sighed, leaning back in his chair. Yeah, I know. I just wish I'd known what I was getting into when I won that auction. Before Zafira could respond, the ship's AI interrupted. Captain, long-range sensors have detected movement. Alex's stomach tightened. How long do we have? Approximately 20 minutes before they're in range. Zafira's expression darkened. They found us. Great, Alex muttered. Just great. He stood, pacing the cockpit. We're sitting ducks here. The ship's barely holding together, and I don't have the firepower to take on another fleet. There's another way, Zafira said quietly. Alex turned to her, frowning. Another way. She nodded, standing slowly. This planet, it's not just a random rock. It was one of my people's outposts. If we can reach the ruins, I might be able to access a beacon, a signal to call for help. Help? Alex asked skeptically. From who? You just said your people are gone. Not all of them, Zafira said, her voice resolute. Some escaped the destruction. If they're still alive, the beacon will reach them. Alex hesitated. And what if it doesn't work? Zafira looked him in the eye, her expression steady. Then we'll die fighting. Alex cursed under his breath. He hated this. He hated the odds, the risk, the fact that he cared. But there was something in Zafira's gaze, something that made him want to believe. Fine, he said, grabbing his gear. Let's find your beacon. But if this goes south, I'm blaming you. Zafira managed a faint smile. Fair enough. As they prepared to leave the ship, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this planet held more secrets than Zafira was letting on, and whatever they found in the ruins might be the difference between survival and oblivion. The Empire's wrath. The silver dawn streaked through the icy rings of a distant gas giant, its hull groaning under the strain. Behind it, an Imperial destroyer loomed like a predator, its cannons firing bursts of plasma that illuminated the darkness. Each shot grew closer, the fiery bolts grazing Alex's ship with unsettling precision. "This isn't going to work," Alex shouted, gripping the controls as he veered the ship sharply to avoid another blast. Saphira stood behind him, her glowing patterns flickering erratically. She leaned against the console, her voice strained. "The signal worked. My people will come, but we have to hold out." Alex glanced at her, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, great. We just have to survive long enough for your mythical friends to show up and save the day. No pressure." The AI interrupted with its usual calm tone. "Captain, shields are at 15%. Hull integrity is critically compromised." Alex slammed his fist on the dashboard. "You don't say. Got any better ideas?" Saphira's gaze hardened, and she steadied herself. "I can buy us time." Alex shot her a warning look. "If this is another sacrifice myself plan, forget it." "It's not," she replied, though her voice lacked conviction. "Trust me." Before Alex could argue, the ship rocked violently as another plasma bolt hit. The lights flickered, and sparks rained down from an overhead panel. Alex cursed under his breath, his hands flying over the controls. "Whatever you're going to do," he growled, "do it fast." Saphira nodded and closed her eyes. The glowing patterns on her skin surged to life, brighter than Alex had ever seen. A faint hum filled the air, growing louder until it resonated through the entire ship. Alex's ears popped, and the ship's AI stuttered, as if overwhelmed by the strange energy. "What the hell is that?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with panic. Saphira didn't answer. Her body began to levitate slightly, and the glow around her expanded outward, spreading like a pulse of light through the ship. Alex's radar screen flared with interference, and the pursuing destroyer faltered, its weapons systems flickering erratically. On board the destroyer, chaos erupted. The crew scrambled to regain control as their targeting systems went haywire. The captain, a grizzled veteran with a mechanical eye, slammed his fist on the console. "What is she doing? Focus fire on that ship." But it was too late. The pulse of energy disrupted their power grid, forcing the massive ship to slow. The destroyer's plasma cannons dimmed, their glow fading like dying embers. Back on the Silver Dawn, Saphira collapsed to the floor, her glow dimming to a faint shimmer. Alex rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the ground. "Saphira," he said, his voice filled with worry. "What did you just do?" Her eyes fluttered open, and she managed a weak smile. "I disrupted their systems. It won't last long." Alex groaned. "You could have warned me. I thought you were going to blow up the ship." She chuckled faintly, her voice barely audible. "Not yet." The AI chimed in. "Captain, the enemy vessel's weapons are temporarily offline. However, reinforcements are inbound. Estimated arrival: 10 minutes. Alex tightened his grip on the controls, his mind racing. 10 minutes. That's all we've got. Saphira struggled to sit up, her voice more determined now. "Take us to the asteroid cluster ahead. We can hide there." "Hide? Against Imperial ships? That's your plan?" Alex asked incredulously. "It's not just an asteroid cluster," she said. "It's a defense grid, one my people built long ago." Alex raised an eyebrow. "You're just full of surprises, aren't you?" "Trust me," she said again, her violet eyes locking onto his. "If we can activate the grid, it will protect us." Alex sighed, shaking his head. "Fine, but if this gets me killed, I'm haunting you." He punched in the coordinates, and the Silver Dawn roared toward the asteroid cluster. The radar lit up with approaching Imperial ships, their sleek silhouettes cutting through the void like daggers. As they entered the asteroid field, Alex saw what Saphira had meant. Hidden among the jagged rocks were ancient structures, their surfaces etched with glowing symbols similar to the patterns on Saphira's skin. The ruins pulsed faintly, as if responding to her presence. "What is this place?" Alex asked, his voice hushed. "A Zenithian outpost," Saphira said, her tone reverent. "One of the last." The ship landed on a flat, glowing platform, and Alex helped Saphira to her feet. She leaned heavily on him, her energy clearly drained, but her determination was unwavering. "There," she said, pointing to a central console embedded in the platform. "That's the control node." Alex frowned. "You're not in any shape, Toe." "I have to," she interrupted. "The grid will only respond to me." Reluctantly, Alex helped her to the console. As she placed her hands on the glowing surface, the patterns on her skin flared to life once more. The ruins around them began to hum, and beams of light shot out from the asteroids, forming a protective barrier. The Imperial reinforcements arrived just as the grid activated. Their ships slammed into the barrier, exploding on impact. The destroyer, still limping from Saphira's earlier pulse, attempted to fire, but its plasma bolts dissipated harmlessly against the shield. Alex watched in awe as the grid held firm, repelling the Imperial forces. He turned to Saphira, who was now slumped against the console, barely conscious. "You did it," he said softly. "You actually did it." She smiled faintly. "Told you to trust me." As the last of the Imperial ships retreated, Alex couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and dread. They had survived, for now. But the Empire wouldn't give up that easily, and with each step deeper into Saphira's world, Alex realized he was becoming part of something much larger than himself, something that could change the galaxy forever. The ultimate plan. The ancient Zenithian outpost hummed softly with energy, its towering structures a testament to a civilization that had long since vanished. Alex paced nervously around the dimly lit control room, glancing at Saphira as she sat cross-legged on the floor, her breathing shallow. Her glowing patterns pulsed faintly, signaling her exhaustion after activating the defense grid that had saved them moments ago. "This isn't sustainable," Alex muttered, running a hand through his hair. "They'll come back with more ships, bigger guns, and probably a death wish for both of us." Saphira opened her eyes, her violet gaze locking onto him. "That's why we have to act now." "Act?" Alex asked, throwing up his hands. "What exactly does that mean? We're two people on a half-broken ship hiding in an ancient ruin. What are we supposed to do? Ask politely for them to stop hunting us?" Saphira's lips curled into a faint smile. "Not exactly. But this outpost wasn't just a sanctuary. It was a stronghold, equipped with the means to turn the tide of any battle." Alex froze, his eyes narrowing. "What kind of means are we talking about?" She pushed herself to her feet, using the wall for support. "The catalyst," she said softly. "A fragment of it was stored here, hidden after the fall of my people. It's incomplete, but it holds enough power to cripple the Empire's fleet." Alex's stomach dropped. "You're telling me we're sitting on a piece of the galaxy's deadliest weapon, and your plan is to use it?" "It's our only chance," Saphira said firmly. "The Empire won't stop until they have me, and the full catalyst. If we use this fragment, we can destroy their flagship and scatter their forces." Alex shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. "You want to play with fire, Saphira. A weapon like that, it doesn't just destroy ships, it destroys everything." "That's why it must be me," she said, stepping closer. "The catalyst responds to Zenithian energy. It won't activate without me." "And if it kills you?" Alex snapped. She hesitated, her expression softening. "Then I'll die knowing I gave us a fighting chance." Alex clenched his fists, anger and fear twisting in his chest. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," she said, her voice unwavering. "The Empire will be here within hours. If we wait, we die." Before Alex could argue further, the room's holographic display flickered to life. The AI's monotone voice broke the tension. "Incoming transmission. Source. Imperial Command." Alex's blood ran cold. "Patch it through." The hologram shifted, revealing a tall man in a sleek black uniform. His face was sharp and angular, his silver hair gleaming under the harsh light, his piercing gaze fixed on Alex. "Captain Carter," the man said smoothly, "I am Admiral Kaler of the Imperial Fleet. I commend your resourcefulness, but this game is over." Alex crossed his arms, masking his fear with defiance. "Funny, I didn't realize we were playing a game." Kaler's smile was cold. "Return the girl to us, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be annihilated." Alex chuckled bitterly. "You really think I trust that offer? You tried to blow me out of the sky an hour ago." "You misunderstand," Kaler said, his tone icy. "This isn't an offer. It's a courtesy." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in tense silence. Alex turned to Zafira, his jaw tight. "You still think this catalyst plan is a good idea?" "It's our only idea," she said quietly. Alex sighed, the weight of the decision pressing on him. "All right, but if we're doing this, we're doing it my way." The plan unfolds. The outpost's core chamber was vast and filled with Zenithian technology, glowing pillars, intricate conduits, and a central console that radiated raw power. Zafira approached it cautiously, her glowing patterns sensing with the console's light. Alex stood nearby, his blaster holstered but ready. "You're sure this won't blow us all to hell?" "No," Zafira admitted, placing her hands on the console. "But I can contain it long enough to target the flagship." The console flared to life, and the room vibrated with energy. Alex shielded his eyes as a holographic interface appeared, displaying the Empire's fleet closing in on their position. "Coordinates locked," Zafira said, her voice steady despite the strain. "The catalyst will fire in 5 minutes." 5 minutes? Alex exclaimed. "They'll be on top of us in 3. "That's why you need to hold them off," she said, glancing at him. "I can't do this without you." Alex swallowed hard, then nodded. "Guess it's my turn to play hero." He bolted back to the Silver Dawn, the ship's engines roaring to life as he launched into the fray. The Imperial fleet swarmed around the outpost, their smaller fighters darting like angry hornets. Alex weaved through them, firing with precision, buying Zafira the time she needed. The catalyst awakens. Back in the chamber, Zafira's body levitated as the catalyst's energy coursed through her. Her glowing patterns burned brighter, her face a mask of focus and pain. The console's interface displayed a countdown. 0:30. "Zafira, are you there?" Alex's voice crackled over the comms. "I'm here," she said, her voice faint but resolute. "Get clear, Alex. The catalyst is ready." "What about you?" he asked, his voice tight with worry. She hesitated. "I'll try." The countdown hit 0, and a blinding beam of energy erupted from the outpost, slicing through the void. The Imperial flagship was caught in its path, its shields disintegrating in an instant. The ship exploded in a cascade of light, taking dozens of smaller vessels with it. The remaining Imperial forces scattered, their formation shattered. The outpost fell silent, its power spent. Aftermath. Alex landed the Silver Dawn near the outpost and ran to the chamber. He found Zafira lying on the floor, her glow faint but still present. "Zafira," he called, kneeling beside her. Her eyes fluttered open, and she smiled weakly. "Did it work?" Alex grinned. "Yeah, you did it." She exhaled softly, her body relaxing. Then it was worth it. As Alex carried her back to the ship, he couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and dread. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Empire would return, stronger and more determined. But for now, they had a chance, a fragile hope in a galaxy that desperately needed it. The final stand. The Silver Dawn drifted silently in the orbit of a shattered moon. The once brilliant glow of the Zenithian outpost had faded, leaving only cold, quiet ruins. Inside the ship, Alex paced the cockpit, his mind racing as he reviewed the sensor data. The Empire's fleet had been decimated, their flagship obliterated, but the remaining forces were regrouping. Time was running out. Behind him, Zafira lay on the medbay cot, her glow faint but steady. Her breathing was shallow, her strength nearly spent after activating the catalyst fragment. Alex had seen her do the impossible, summoning the power of a lost civilization to buy them a chance at survival. But now, she was hanging by a thread. The AI interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, incoming transmission." Alex froze. "From who?" "Unidentified source," the AI replied. "Signal is encrypted." Alex hesitated, then nodded. "Patch it through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a tall figure cloaked in silver and blue. Their face was hidden beneath an ornate mask, but the voice was unmistakably Zenithian, melodic yet commanding. "You've awakened the catalyst," the figure said. "And in doing so, you've summoned us." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "You're Zenithian." The figure tilted their head. "We are the remnant, survivors of the Zenith Empire. We've watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to act." Alex's voice sharpened. "And now's the right moment." "The catalyst is our legacy," the remnant said. "It was never meant to fall into the hands of the Empire. You and the girl have delayed their plans, but they will return. We must finish what you started, a desperate alliance." Minutes later, Alex stood outside the Silver Dawn, his boots crunching against the icy surface of the ruined outpost. The remnant had arrived in sleek, needle-like ships that radiated an eerie, otherworldly energy. Their leader, still masked, approached him with measured steps, flanked by warriors clad in gleaming armor. "We'll take her with us," the leader said, their voice firm. "Her connection to the catalyst is vital. She belongs with us." Alex's jaw tightened. "She's not going anywhere. She's barely alive because of what your legacy did to her. I didn't risk my life just to hand her over to some shadowy kibble." The leader paused, as if considering Alex's defiance. "You care for her." Alex bristled. "She's risked everything for your people, for this galaxy. The least you can do is let her decide what happens next." Before the leader could respond, Zafira's voice rang out, faint but resolute. "I'll go." Alex spun around to see her standing at the ramp of the Silver Dawn, leaning heavily on the frame for support. Her glowing patterns flickered like dying embers, but her gaze was steady. "Zafira, you don't have to do this," Alex said, his voice laced with concern. "Yes, I do," she replied, stepping forward. "The catalyst isn't just a weapon. It's a responsibility. If the remnant can stop the Empire, I have to help them." Alex clenched his fists, every instinct screaming to protect her. But he knew she was right. The Empire strikes back. Their decision was cut short by the distant roar of engines. The horizon lit up as Imperial ships descended, their formation tighter, their weapons already charging. The Empire wasn't retreating. They were making a final push. The remnant leader turned to their warriors. "Prepare the defense grid. Hold them off at all costs." Alex grabbed Zafira's arm. "You're not going anywhere until this is over." She shook her head. "Alex." "No," he interrupted, his tone fierce. "You've done enough. Let them fight their war. We'll figure this out together." Zafira hesitated, then nodded. Together, they ran back to the Silver Dawn, its engines roaring to life. As the battle erupted above the ruined moon, the Silver Dawn weaved through the chaos. Alex piloted with precision, dodging blasts and debris, while Zafira worked at the console, her hands trembling as she rerouted power to the ship's weapons. "They're targeting the ruins," Zafira said, her voice filled with urgency. "If they destroy the outpost, the defense grid will collapse." "Not on my watch," Alex growled. The final gambit. As the Silver Dawn dove toward the Imperial flagship, Zafira's glow intensified. Her connection to the catalyst fragment had returned, and Alex realized what she was about to do. "No," he said, shaking his head. "We're not doing this again. It's the only way, Zafira said, her voice calm. The catalyst's energy can disable their fleet, but it needs a conduit. You're not a conduit, Zafira. You're a person, Alex snapped. And I choose to fight, she said, placing her glowing hand on his. Just trust me. Alex swallowed hard, then nodded. Fine. Let's do this. The Silver Dawn barreled toward the flagship, its systems glowing as Zafira channeled the catalyst's power. Energy surged through the ship, and a brilliant beam erupted from its core, slicing through the Imperial fleet. One by one, the enemy ships fell, their systems fried by the catalyst's pulse. The flagship exploded in a cascade of fire and light, and the remaining ships scattered, retreating into the void. A new beginning. As the battlefield fell silent, the Silver Dawn floated amidst the wreckage. Inside, Alex turned to Zafira, who slumped in her seat, her glow dim but steady. You did it, Alex said softly. We did it, she replied with a faint smile. Moments later, the remnant ships descended, their leader stepping onto the Silver Dawn. They bowed slightly to Zafira. You've given us hope. The catalyst's legacy will be one of peace, not destruction. Zafira looked at Alex, then back at the remnant. I'll help you rebuild, but my place is here, with him. The leader nodded solemnly. Then the Zenithian legacy will live on through you. As the remnant departed, Alex and Zafira stood on the ruined moon, staring at the stars. For the first time in what felt like forever, the galaxy was quiet. What now? Alex asked. Zafira smiled. Now, we find our own way. Together. The stars shimmered above them, and for the first time, Alex felt like the galaxy had a chance.